Hey YouTube, it's Penny. So this is going to be part two to the October Crisis video. I have a bunch of other dreams and visions that I believe are all connected to what the Father's been showing me. So I wanted to bring those pieces of the puzzle to you, but I'm just going to connect it in the description box to the previous video. It's going to remain unlisted unless the Father instructs me otherwise. So, okay, and please forgive me if these thoughts seem random. And forgive my dog, if you can see him. I've been trying to record this and he just won't leave me alone. So anyway, okay. So starting with the scene of me sitting in the home fellowship group when I saw that anonymous guy on the TV, that setting was almost exactly the same as the setting in the dream that I had in April. It was actually the night before Passover in 2012, when I knew that it was time for me to leave the Seattle area. Now, that doesn't mean that it was time for anybody else to leave, but it was time for me to leave, and the Father was very clear about that. In fact, if you go and watch the video that I uploaded then called I Saw America Flash Before My Eyes, in the description box, there's just a link with it doesn't tell you what that link is to. That's to another video that is unlisted that gives more information about how the Father confirmed to me that it was time for me not only to leave my job, but to leave the Seattle area. So it's interesting to me now that he gives me this dream with the exact same, setting. I'm sitting with my back to the couch on the floor. There's a TV. I mean, it was interesting that it was the same. Okay, so that's one connection. And then I have done a video called Abandon the Cities, where I kind of watch that one too if you haven't seen it, where I talk about how the Lord has been speaking to me about when it's time to leave my dog. Okay, so another connection for me, when I uploaded that A Conspiracy of Fire Will Surround Them dream back on June 24th, I think, I shared in that video that I had a vision of a couple wearing black and orange football uniforms that appeared like over my shoulder when I was watching. It was creepy and kind of freaked me out. Anyway, so I described them as being expressionless, and I said that I recognized the face of the man, but I couldn't place him. Okay, so the night of June 25th, so after I uploaded that video, I was praying more about that vision, and I asked the Father for revelation of who they were. And I woke up in the middle of the night to the words, "that couple from Ohio." And I immediately, like, the vision that came to me was the couple depicted in the American Gothic painting. Okay, so I did some research. That couple's not from Ohio, but what's interesting about it is that a lot of people think that painting is of a man and his much younger wife. Well, in reality, the people that posed for that painting, it was a man and his daughter, but everybody assumes it's the man and his wife, and I had assumed that as well. Well, so then it pinged with me. It was like, okay, now I remember that the reason I recognize the face of the man is because he was shown to me as John Cullum. So that guy, he's an actor who starred in Northern Exposure, where he was married to a much younger woman, just like in the painting. So John Cullum also starred in a TV special called The Day After, which is about a nuclear bomb in a small Midwestern town, as well as a TV series called Roswell, which I had no idea about, which is about the relationships between humans and their hybrid counterparts. Okay, really creepy stuff. I might have to go deal with the dog. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. 8-month-old Labrador Retriever is a little bit precocious. So, okay. Where were we? Okay, so someone commented on that Conspiracy of Fire video. I think it was a man. He said, "I was struck by the colors of the jerseys of the two expressionless people you saw," referring back to that vision. He said, now, if they were NFL, then the Cincinnati Bengals were the only true fit. Okay, so I originally dismissed that comment and even said to him, no, I don't think this is about an actual football team, because when I had asked the Lord why I was being shown so many football images in my dreams and visions, I mean, these go way back to when I first started receiving dreams and visions, I heard the word battlefield, so I assumed that it had to do with like a spiritual battlefield. But it wasn't until September 4th when I was praying about the couple from Ohio, and asking the Lord, like, why were they from Ohio? And then it hit me, like a ton of bricks. It can be a little dense sometime. That Cincinnati is in Ohio. So Abba could have actually been pointing me to the Cincinnati Bengals after all. Okay, so I looked at the NFL football schedule to see if any games were being played on Halloween this year. And I'm not prophesying anything. I'm just trying to share kind of like where I've been led. Okay, the only NFL game that's being played on Halloween night this year is the Cincinnati Bengals in Miami. Okay, so the game starts at 8:25 p.m. Eastern time. So it's going to be played while people all across the country are, handing out Halloween candy. And I don't need to go into the whole why we shouldn't participate in Halloween thing in this video. But meaning that it's not going to end until close to midnight, which will be November 1st, All Screams Day. Okay, so because of the dream that I had back on June 22nd about the Hindenburg, where JFK was asking his son, what's the fastest, best breeze you can blow in the sky? Where the Hindenburg kite he was flying turned into what I saw as Hindenburg balloons. It reminded me of the Goodyear Blimp. So I looked online to see if the Goodyear Blimp is going to be at that game on Halloween. Okay, so I couldn't find a schedule, but I found this map on their website. Okay, so I didn't know that there's only 3 Goodyear blimps, and one of them is stationed in Florida, very close to Miami, and flies at the Miami Dolphins football games. So I also found this. In 1976, Goodyear allowed the use of its blimps for the filming of Black Sunday. So it was a movie that was based on the novel by Thomas Harris about a distressed former POW blimp pilot who helps Middle Eastern terrorists attack the Super Bowl with a lethal device attached to the airship's car. 2 blimps were used for the conclusion. The base scenes were shot in Carson, California, using the Columbia, that's important, and the Super Bowl scenes were shot in Miami, Florida, using the Mayflower, is the name of the one that's stationed there, which is smaller than the Columbia. Okay, so I didn't know that there was a Goodyear blimp named Columbia, and this could be another connection to a dream that I had with references to nuclear explosions, Columbia, and Florida. Okay, so here's the dream. This was July 8th of 2013. I was with a group of people and understood that 2 nuclear explosions had occurred, and they were to my east, which is interesting because Florida is to the east of where I live. So 2 nuclear explosions had occurred, and it was only a matter of time before we would feel the effects. Okay, I don't know if that means feel the effects physically or financially or what. But in the dream, David said that he had heard a report that it had knocked the space shuttle out of the sky, and it was predicted to land in the Columbia River, which is in Washington State. Okay. The thing that's interesting to me about, this dream having a connection to the Columbia River is that the Columbia space shuttle exploded in the air in the mid-'80s when I lived down there. I actually saw it with my own eyes because I lived about a half hour south of Cape Canaveral at the time. So the Columbia Space Shuttle was knocked out of the sky, which was what David was reporting in his dream, that the space shuttle had been knocked out of the sky. So I think that there's a connection there as well. And then, oh gosh, where's this other? Okay, so then I had this other. Okay, I'm just going to kind of keep going. I know this is random, but I just want to bring you all these connections. So remember how I said that the anonymous character who was pushing on the plunger on that bomb? And again, I don't know if it's a nuclear bomb. I don't know if it's an economic bomb. And the reason I say that is that a couple days after I uploaded that video about the Hindenburg dream, my sister forwarded me a video from Informed Texas Voter, and I about fell over when I saw the title. It was talking about the Hindenburg omen. I was like, what? And I looked it up. Well, I watched her video, and sure enough, the Hindenburg omen is this phenomenon that happens in the stock market right before an economic collapse. And so I'll try to link in the description box to some of the stuff for you, but if I forget, you can look that up. But anyway, so the fact that he was showing me the Hindenburg could be signaling an economic collapse, or it could be a nuclear event that causes an economic collapse. I don't know. But back on December 22nd of 2012, I had a vision of a man who was putting up a sign on the beach with the words, "Road Runner Approved." And it looked exactly like the beach in Tel Aviv when we stayed there at the Sheraton Hotel. So there's a connect, and the Roadrunner's a bird. I mean, here's another bird again. So I think that there's some connection to Tel Aviv with this Roadrunner thing. Okay. So another connection to the Kennedys, on July 7th, I dreamt that I was on a boat sitting across from Jackie Kennedy Onassis, and she was treating me like I was some sort of a second-class citizen. And it was as though there was some elite or privileged group that would be responsible for mistreating me in the future, and like she was warning me about it. And I was confused because, I'm Caucasian and not typically thought of as a second-class citizen, but she assured me that I was. Okay. All right, and then, okay, so here's another connection to Florida and terrorism. Back on January 1st of 2013, I dreamt that David and I were sitting in the waiting room outside of a senator's office with our son, but in the dream it was not our actual son, it was somebody I've never seen before. And he was telling us that he had just been on an airplane, and when it landed, they wouldn't let anyone get off the plane until they got him off first. They accused him of being a terrorist and interrogated him for a long time before releasing him. I asked if he had told them about all of his political experience, specifically the time that he had participated in a community service project to paint the Supreme Court building. Anyway, very detailed dream. At that point, the senator came out of his office, which is on the right, we're in his lobby, to greet us. And I asked him, did you hear what our son was just saying? And he said, yeah, I did. And then one of his aides walked in from the hallway, and he whispered in his ear, but loud enough for us to hear. He said, "That's the key to Florida." Okay, and that's when I woke up. Well, so the main words in this dream were airplane, senator, terrorist, Supreme Court, key, and Florida. Or maybe Florida Keys, which totally reminds me of that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie with Jamie, what's her name? From Halloween. That's connected. She did that movie Halloween. What is that thing called? Anyway, it's about a nuclear plot. In fact, there's actually a nuclear explosion that happens in the Florida Keys. I don't know. So, and on the same night on January 1st, I had this dream where I was trying to get somewhere in this big city, and there was this airplane, another airplane dream, doing these otherworldly acrobatic stunts above the city. So there's definitely some sort of a connection with, me seeing airplanes over the city and otherworldly stuff. And so I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that, but the fact that he showed it to me on January 1st, the same night as I got that other dream, it's got to be connected. So Okay, so here's something that's interesting. Because I was kind of looking at that whole time frame of Halloween, November 1st, and then like the Guy Fawkes night is November 5th. So it's kind of like looking at like, well, what else is going on during that time period? November 1st is also election day in the US. I don't know if that means anything at all. But back on February 19th of 2012, in a dream, the Lord told me to cut and paste one of the words that I had previously seen. And at the time, I couldn't remember if it was attack or alert or both. But I cut the word, like, you know how you do like Control X. But when I went to paste it, rather than doing Control C, I actually typed 3:11. And like how you would a time, but at the time I thought it was more like a date. So I looked in Stellarium, that software program, to see, you know, if anything was going on 3/11 of 2012. And I discovered this anomaly in Stellarium where it looks like the sky jumps, like all the constellations jump forward. And I did a video where I actually kind of showed this happening on March 11th, but I couldn't figure out, you know, what the significance of this was, other than the fact that it was daylight savings time. Okay, so November 3rd of this year is daylight savings time. And I went, okay, wait a minute. So it reminded me of this dream that I had on March 8th of this last year, 2013. I dreamt that David and I were at the beach, even though it wasn't warm, so it was not summertime. And there were people all around us who were scoffing about the coming pole shift in Planet X and all of that, Nibiru. The waves suddenly started to come up further onto the beach, and as we were getting up to move our things out of the way, this huge wave came in that kept growing and growing, and I was caught up in it. And as I rode up this wave, I was holding my husband's wallet up over my head to keep it out of the water. And as I looked up into the sky, I saw this stiff woman, like a mannequin almost, fly over me, like boom, really fast, from the left to the right. And when I woke up, I realized that it was the woman depicted in the constellation Virgo in Stellarium. So he was pointing me to daylight savings time when that happens. So now I'm beginning to wonder if this whole thing has to do with November 3rd. If it's not this daylight savings time, he's pointing me to some daylight savings time when Virgo like flies over your head in Stellarium. So, and in that dream, it was connected to this big wave, which I don't know if is a real tsunami or if it's like something that happens that's like an economic tsunami. But it was definitely connected to me trying to save the money. And okay, here's another connection. Remember in that Chicken Little dream that I did, prophesy the death of the Sparrows? I showed you this picture. Okay, so at the time I didn't catch it, but later I was going back and looking, and it says, this time the sky really is falling, November 4th. Okay, so that's the date after Stellarium jumps. And okay, then I've had several. I went back to look to see when I had that dream about abandon the cities, and to see if there was anything else that was right around that time frame, because usually the Father will show me things that are connected. And I had a dream about this young girl. This is the young girl that I've seen several times in my dreams and visions, and she was packing up all the gold and putting it into a duffel bag. So there's definitely an economic connection there. And on October 30th, a couple of nights before, and then November 8th, so the next week, I had two dreams about fire spreading quickly, and I wasn't able to put it out, which may be connected to, you know, this fire that I'm seeing in the sky or whatever. And then, of course, it was a couple days later that I had the All Screams Day thing. Oh, and on November 18th last year, I heard the words, "The enemy from within is being called up." Okay, so connection to football for me. Jonathan Kleck has had some prophetic words about the enemy within your borders or something like that about Barack Obama, which reminds me of this football vision that I had early on. I think it was like in February of 2012. And it was of a little black boy with really curly hair. So he looked like what we would call like mulatto, like a mix between black and white. And he was wearing a gray sweatsuit, which is a mix of black and white. And I saw him run up to this little group of children who were standing in a huddle, like trying to figure out what their next move was going to be. And he ran up and he stole their football. And he ran right past me with this smirk on his face, like he couldn't believe he'd just gotten away with this. And all the other children just stood there dumbfounded. Like nobody ran after him to go like, hey, give us our football back. They just stood there like they couldn't believe what had just happened. And the interesting thing was, in that vision, I saw it as a second time as an instant replay, which is another football thing. You see instant replays. But I also knew the Lord was really wanting to solidify in my mind what I saw. And when I woke up, I said, basically a half black, half white person is stealing the football, and immediately thought of the nuclear football, which is a suitcase where the nuclear codes are kept. So if the Father was showing me that Obama is stealing the nuclear football and he's the enemy from within that's being called up, I don't know. On July 14th of this year, 2013, I awoke to the number 17, followed by the song about angry men from that musical Les Miserables. And so I put those two together and I came up with 17 angry men. Well, that reminded me of the hijackers in the September 11th attack, allegedly, were 19 men affiliated with Al-Qaeda. 15 of the 19 were citizens of Saudi Arabia, supposedly. So on September 1st, I had several things that were all related, 3 things. One, I had a dream where I saw a black woman trying to assist someone who was trapped in a car. She could have been Middle Eastern. I don't know. Anyway, the car, another car backed up to where she was, right? So she's standing right here between, I don't know if you can see. So here's one car, here's this other car that backs up. And she's right here. So she's like now like pinned between these 2 cars. And I realized that this driver needs to back up a little bit more so that he can get away from her. Because if he goes forward, he's going to rip her arm off. But he guns it. Like total disregard for life and limb is what I understood when I woke up. Okay, the thing that was interesting about that is just before I had that dream, I heard these words: Hezbollah was born for your freedom. And then as I was waking up from hearing those words, I understood that it was propaganda. Okay, so I think this is about Hezbollah, this dream about disregard for life and limb. And then the next dream that I had, all on September 1st, it was a vision of somebody setting fire to a black and white flag that I didn't recognize, and it was covering up an American flag that was hidden behind it. So they came and they brought it, kind of like burning an effigy kind of thing. And they lit it on fire and both flags burned up. And I understood this to be symbolic of some sort of a cover-up or false flag resulting in the destruction of America. So I looked to see, and it turns out that no sovereign countries have a black and white flag. However, the flag of Islamic Jihad is black and white, and it looks like this. Okay, those crossed swords have been a recurring theme, and it triggered a memory with me when I first told David about the dream with that anonymous, that Guy Fawkes mask. He said, "Oh yeah, like in V for Vendetta." And I was like, I fell asleep during that movie. The only reason I even went to see it was because it had Natalie Portman in it, and I think she's pretty. I hated that movie, and I didn't remember anything about it. And so I went and then looked that up at the time that I was researching that video about that dream about the Guy Fawkes Mass. And anyway, so when I see this Islamic Jihad flag with the crossed swords, it triggers a memory of like, oh yeah, that V for Vendetta movie. Okay, so here is like a poster promo for that movie. Okay, and then here is another image I found on the internet. I have this on another, I don't have it on this computer, so I had to go get my other computer. So I'm just going to read to you what I got this morning, the morning of September 11th. Okay, so actually last night I had several songs playing in my head all night long about yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And then I awoke in the morning to the words the day after tomorrow. So, and it wasn't until I turned my cell phone on this morning that I actually realized today is September 11th. Okay, so here are the songs that I heard last night. The first one was Try to Remember. Some of the lines in here are try to remember the kind of September right now, when life was slow and oh so mellow. Try to remember when life was so tender that no one wept except the willow. That dreams were kept beside your pillow. Okay, I write down my dreams beside my pillow at night. Try to remember, let's see, deep in December, it's nice to remember the fire of September. So here's fire again. And we certainly saw the fire of September on September 11th. And here I'm getting this, try to remember thing. And today, I mean, I don't have TV, so I have no idea, but I'm assuming there were lots of like remembrance things that were happening today for September 11th. The next song I heard last night was Kiss the Day Goodbye, the Sweetness and the Sorrow. And it's What I Did for Love is I think the name of the song, I'm not sure, but it talks about, and we carry on, love's what we'll remember, point me toward tomorrow, won't forget, can't regret what I did for love. So it's again, it's about remembering and kissing one day goodbye and looking forward to tomorrow. And then this morning, I woke up at like early, like at 5 or 6, and I heard, before I heard the Day After Tomorrow, I heard this song, I Love You More Today Than Yesterday. And some of the lyrics in that song talk about remembering. I don't remember what day it was. I didn't notice what time it was. So it's remember, day, time. Every day's a new day. So looking forward to the future. There's this line that says, and if all my dreams come true, better hope my dreams don't come true. I don't know what this means. This line says, tomorrow's date means springtime's just a day away. If you have a clue about that, let me know. I don't know what that is. I thank the Lord for love like ours. So I love you more today than yesterday, but not as much as tomorrow. And then I hear, when I woke up at 7:30 or whatever, the day after tomorrow. Okay, so I looked that up, and the day after tomorrow, 3 things. Originally, the first thing was in 1975. It was a TV show, and it was called The Day After Tomorrow. In the U.S. and the United Kingdom, it was called Into Infinity. I just thought it was interesting because this is all about kind of like space voyage stuff, and they talk about a giant red star and a black hole that pulls this ship into another universe, and the whole giant red star thing certainly sounded like Nibiru kind of stuff to me. In 1983, and I mentioned this earlier in the video, was that TV show with John Cullum, which was about the nuclear explosion, and that's the first thing I thought of when I heard those were the day after tomorrow. And it was also, a movie in 2004 about global warming and weather changes and an ice age coming and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not exactly sure, but I was immediately thought of the nuclear thing, and it's interesting too because that's set in the Midwest, like reminded me of that couple from Ohio. So, okay, this is long. I'm sorry. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Comments will be by approval only because people are just going to come after me, I'm sure, for putting all this information out there. I would be interested, those of you who are of the called out assembly of believers, if you have any other connections to what we're being shown here, I would love to hear them. So, okay, I'm going to end it with that finally. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, our Lord God, King of the universe.